You know what they never tell you about being a retired cop? It's not the silence after 30 years of sirens that gets to you. It's discovering that the people you protected your whole life never learned to protect you back. My name is Carol Thompson, and for 3 decades I walked the streets of New York City, wearing a badge that meant something. I buried my husband in a flag-draped coffin after he took a bullet meant for a family he'd never meet. I raised our son David with the discipline and love that comes from knowing how precious life really is. I saved every penny of our combined pensions and life insurance for David's future, wanting him to have what we never did. What I got instead was watching my son disappear into someone else's vision of what his life should be. David married Isabella Rossi 5 years ago. And from that moment, I became a relic to be managed, rather than a mother to be cherished. Isabella looked at our modest Queens apartment, like someone examining a crime scene. She smiled when she met me, but it was the kind of smile I'd seen on suspects who thought they were smarter than the system. The changes started small. Sunday dinners became monthly dinners, became special occasion dinners. David's phone calls grew shorter. When they visited, Isabella would sit on the edge of her chair as if my furniture might contaminate her clothing. She'd compliment my cooking with a tone that somehow made it sound like an insult. But I endured it because that's what mothers do. I endured it because David seemed happy, even if that happiness looked increasingly hollow. I endured it because I'd learned that sometimes the best strategy is to observe and wait. What I didn't know was that my son was living in a Manhattan penthouse that I was paying for. When David got married, I'd set up a trust fund through my lawyer. Anonymous, clean, designed to give my son the kind of home that would reflect well on his architectural career. The penthouse purchase, the monthly mortgage payments, the maintenance fees. David's name was on the deed, but the trust was the real owner. If payments stopped, the whole arrangement would collapse. I did this because I loved him. I wanted him to feel proud of what he'd accomplished, not indebted to his mother's charity. The lawyer assured me the setup was anonymous. David would never know where his good fortune came from. For 5 years, I watched my son take credit for success built on my husband's grave. I watched Isabella treat me like an embarrassing relative, while living in luxury my sacrifices had purchased. I watched David grow more distant, forgetting the values we'd raised him with. But the Sunday before Christmas, something inside me finally broke. They'd invited me to dinner at some upscale restaurant in Manhattan. I should have known something was wrong when Isabella suggested meeting there instead of having me cook like usual. I should have recognized the setup from years of interrogating suspects. Isabella ordered wine that cost more per bottle than I spend on food in a week. She and David made small talk about their upcoming holiday plans, about important clients they were entertaining, about their New Year's vacation. Normal conversation, except for the undercurrent of tension that made my cop instincts start humming. Then Isabella delivered the blow with surgical precision. She set down her wine glass, folded her hands on the white tablecloth, and gave me that smile again. "Carol," she said, her voice sweet as poisoned honey, "we've been thinking. Christmas this year is going to be really special for us. David's been working so hard, and my father is flying in some very important business associates from Italy. We're planning an intimate gathering for about 30 people, real networking opportunities." I felt the punch coming, but I let her throw it anyway. "The thing is," she continued, "we think it might be a little overwhelming for you. You know how these business dinners can be, all shop talk and industry gossip. We wouldn't want you to feel out of place. So we thought maybe this year you could just relax and enjoy a quiet Christmas at home, and we'll come visit you after the holidays." David stared at his plate like it contained the secrets of the universe. My son couldn't even look at me while his wife banished me from Christmas. I reached for my napkin, folded it carefully, and placed it beside my untouched meal. "That sounds lovely," I said quietly. "I hope you have a wonderful time." I stood up, kissed David on the forehead like when he was 7 and afraid of thunderstorms, and walked out with more dignity than they deserved. The drive home gave me time to think. By the time I parked outside my building, I understood exactly what had just happened. This wasn't about one Christmas dinner. This was about erasing me from my son's life completely, replacing me with Marcus Rossi and his money and connections. I climbed the stairs to my apartment and opened my laptop. Isabella's Instagram was public, of course. Everything about her life was performed for an audience. I scrolled through months of photos documenting her perfect life with my son in their perfect apartment that I was paying for. But it was the photos from that very evening that made my blood run cold. They'd gone straight from dismissing me to their own celebration. Isabella had posted pictures from what looked like a champagne toast in their apartment. David was there, still wearing the same shirt from dinner, holding a glass and smiling. The caption read, "Celebrating some exciting holiday plans with my amazing husband. And the best father-in-law a girl could ask for." Marcus Rossi was featured in every shot, his arm around David's shoulders, beaming with proprietary pride. The comments were full of congratulations from Isabella's network of perfect friends. Not one mention of me. I'd been erased from his history as thoroughly as if I'd never existed. I stared at those photos for a long time, feeling something shift inside my chest like tectonic plates rearranging themselves. This was about Isabella and her father systematically replacing me in David's life while I became nothing more than an embarrassing relic. Well, I thought, setting down my coffee with steady hands. Let's see how secure that success really is. The next morning I made 2 phone calls. The first was to Leo Kowalski, my old partner who'd started his own private investigation business. If anyone could dig up dirt on Marcus Rossi, it was Leo. The second call was to my lawyer. "Mr. Patterson," I said, "I need you to execute the termination clause on Trust Fund 718. Effective immediately." There was a pause. "Mrs. Thompson, are you certain? Once I do this, the beneficiary will have 30 days to arrange alternative financing or face foreclosure." "I'm certain," I told him. "And I want documentation of every payment that's been made from that trust over the past 5 years." I didn't have to wait long. David called me 3 days later, his voice tight with panic. "Mom," he said, and I could hear Isabella shouting in the background. "There's been some kind of mistake with the mortgage company. They're saying we're behind on payments, but that's impossible." I was watering my plants when he called. "Automatic payments from where, David?" "From the bank, from our account." "Honey, when was the last time you actually looked at your bank statements? Your mortgage payment should be about $8,000 a month, plus another $3,000 for maintenance and taxes. How much is coming out of your account?" There was silence. Then a whispered conversation I couldn't make out. "Mom," David's voice was smaller now, "there's only been $500 going out each month. For 5 years. How is that possible?" "Because someone else has been paying the rest. Someone who loved you enough to give you a head start without making you feel like charity. Someone who just found out she's been erased from Christmas." When David spoke again, his voice was thick with tears. "Mom, I'm so sorry. I didn't know." "Yes," I said quietly. "You should have. But that's not your biggest problem right now." Later that afternoon, Leo called with his preliminary report on Marcus Rossi. What he'd found was enough to make me understand why Isabella had been so eager to tie her family's fortunes to mine. "Carol," Leo said, "this guy is in deep. Tax evasion, building code violations, bribery charges. The feds are circling him. He's going to need money fast. Enough to make your son's penthouse look like pocket change. If I had to guess, he's planning to use David's apartment as collateral for a loan to save his business. Which would mean that when the feds arrest him, that apartment gets seized. Your boy would be out on the street." The confrontation came 2 days later. Isabella showed up at my apartment unannounced, her perfect composure cracked just enough to let the desperation show through. She pressed the buzzer repeatedly, then pushed past me into my living room. "What the hell do you think you're doing?" she demanded. "You think you can destroy our lives because we hurt your feelings?" I closed the door carefully. "I don't think I'm the one who's been doing the manipulating, Isabella. Don't you dare act like you're some kind of victim here. You've been controlling David his whole life." I put the kettle on, letting her words bounce off me. "Would you like some tea? You look like you could use it. Are you listening to me? We don't need your money. My father is going to help us. He's going to pay off the mortgage and put the apartment in his name until we can buy it back." I measured tea leaves into my good china pot. "Your father's going to put his name on David's apartment?" "That's right. And then you'll have no power over us anymore." I went to my desk and retrieved the folder Leo had given me. "Sit down," I said quietly. Something in my voice got through to her because she perched on the edge of my couch. I opened the folder and spread the documents across the coffee table. Bank records, photographs, federal investigation reports. 5 years' worth of Marcus Rossi's criminal activities. "Your father has been under federal investigation for 3 years," I said calmly. "Tax evasion, racketeering, conspiracy to commit fraud. He's been using substandard materials in low-income housing and bribing inspectors. Last month, a balcony collapsed in one of his buildings. A little girl was paralyzed." Isabella's face went pale. "That's not true." I handed her a copy of a federal indictment with Marcus Rossi's name featured. "This was filed yesterday. Your father is going to be arrested within the week. And when that happens, every asset he owns becomes part of the investigation, including any property he might put his name on." The teacup slipped from her fingers and shattered on my floor. "If your father puts his name on David's apartment, your son will lose his home when the FBI seizes it. David will be homeless and possibly charged as an accessory." She was crying now, mascara running down her cheeks. "But Daddy said he could fix everything." "Your daddy is about to spend the next 10 to 15 years in federal prison." "Why are you showing me this?" she whispered. "Why are you warning me?" "Because David is my son, and despite everything you've done, I still love him. I'm not going to let him go to prison for your family's crimes." The next morning, David called me. "Mom," his voice was hollow. "Can I come over? I need to talk to you." He arrived carrying a single suitcase and looking like he'd aged 10 years overnight. I made him breakfast while he sat at my kitchen table, staring out the window. "I left her," he said simply. "How much did she tell you?" "Everything. About her father, about what's going to happen." "Mom, I need you to know something. I never knew about the mortgage payments. I thought we'd gotten some special deal because of Isabella's connections." "I know, honey. But that's not the worst part. The worst part is that I let her treat you the way she did. I let her cut you out of our lives because it was easier than fighting with her." His voice broke, and I reached across the table to take his hand. "David, you made mistakes. But you're here now and you're telling me the truth. That's what matters. Can I stay here for a while? This is your home, David." "It always has been." The next few weeks passed in a blur of lawyers and reporters. Marcus Rossi was arrested on a Tuesday morning, led away in handcuffs while news cameras rolled. The penthouse was seized along with everything else he owned. Isabella moved back with her mother in New Jersey. David started therapy. He started taking freelance projects that paid less but allowed him to sleep at night. Gradually, the hollow look in his eyes began to fade. On a Saturday morning in March, I found him in my kitchen making pancakes, humming a song from his childhood. "You seem happy," I said. "I am," he said. "For the first time in years, I'm not pretending to be someone I'm not." After breakfast, David pulled an envelope from his pocket. "It's the first payment on what I owe you. I want to pay you back every penny." I looked at the envelope. "David, you don't owe me anything." "No, Mom. Parents teach their children to be responsible for their choices. I need to pay you back because I need to know I can stand on my own feet." He was right, and I was proud of him for seeing it. That afternoon, David helped me plant tomatoes in my small garden. As we were cleaning up, he paused. "Mom, when you found out about Isabella and her father, why didn't you just cut me off? You would have been justified." "Because you're my son, David. And sometimes love means saving people from themselves, even when they don't deserve it." He hugged me then, the kind of hug I hadn't gotten from him since he was a teenager. "I love you, Mom. I'm sorry it took me so long to remember how to say that." 6 months later, Marcus Rossi was sentenced to 12 years in federal prison. David was doing well, working for a firm that specialized in affordable housing. He was dating a kindergarten teacher named Sarah who brought me flowers when she came for Sunday dinner. On Christmas Eve, exactly 1 year after Isabella had tried to erase me, David and Sarah helped me prepare dinner in my small queen's kitchen. As we sat down to eat, David raised his glass. "I want to make a toast," he said. "To family. To the people who love you even when you forget how to love them back. To second chances. and to the strongest woman I know, who never gave up on her foolish son. Later, I sat in my living room looking at the lights on my Christmas tree. I thought about the past year, about the choices I'd made and the prices we'd all paid. But mostly I thought about David, asleep in the room where I'd read him bedtime stories. I'd spent 30 years as a police officer protecting strangers. But the most important case I'd ever worked was the one that brought my son back to me. Not through anger or revenge, but through the kind of love that refuses to give up. The house rules weren't about power or control. They were about remembering what really matters and fighting for it when everyone else has forgotten. Sometimes, that's the only victory that really matters.